borderline personality disorder, and breakups. If you're going through a breakup or your friend, your family member is, this episode is going to be extremely useful and honest. So make sure you share this episode with someone you love who you think may need to hear this information.
Welcome to the What's Eating You podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Giorgio, and I'm a clinical psychologist.
Welcome back to the What's Eating You podcast. I owe you an apology. I have been so MIA on the podcast, but with good reason, and I'll explain why. So if you've been a loyal listener and you are here regularly, I want to say sorry that I haven't posted regular episodes. I'm honestly the queen of imperfect consistency, but this went a little bit too long. And part of me was like, oh my gosh, it's gone so long. And anyways, we could go down that spiral, but we're not going to today. We're going to focus on why we're here. Now, today's episode was actually requested by a TikTok viewer, and it was about going through a breakup in borderline personality disorder. Now, whether you have BPD or you are healing from a breakup, this episode is going to help you. If you're new here, I'm a clinical psychologist, but of course, these episodes are not psychological advice or medical advice. It is just educational. Now, let's go through why breakups hurt so bad. You've gone through a breakup, I've gone through a breakup. And did you know that breakups are one of the most psychologically stressful events you can go through? Neuroimaging studies show that when we go through breakups or heartbreak, the same pain centers in the brain that respond to physical pain are activated, particularly the anterior cingulate cortex. And that's why it doesn't just feel emotional. It literally hurts. You feel an aching in your heart. Now, for someone with borderline personality disorder, this pain is magnified. And I will explain why that is. So BPD, it's a psychological condition. It comes from the personality disorder section in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. And BPD is characterized by emotional intensity. These individuals experience emotions on another level. They can also be known as the emotional burns victims. They can go from 0 to 100, so feeling okay 1 minute and then feeling very angry the next. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's me. This has to be occurring for a significant period of time and occurring regularly and disrupt your life. Now, this is just one part of BPD. Another crucial factor of borderline personality disorder is a fear of real or imagined abandonment. So as you can imagine, relationships can trigger abandonment schemas or abandonment wounds. And these relationships, usually unstable, can also affect a person's sense of self. Now, people with BPD, they already have a fragile sense of self. So when someone through BPD goes through a breakup, it's not just the loss of a partner. It can feel like the loss of their identity, their safety, and their purpose. So what is borderline personality disorder in a bit more detail? It's a complex mental health condition in which a person experiences dysregulation in 4 core areas. This is how I learned it, and I think it's really easy to understand and explain. Borderline personality disorder, it's marked by 4 areas of cognitive disruption. One is emotional dysregulation. The person really struggles to control and manage their emotions, which can lead to intense mood swings. Number 2 is behavioral dysregulation. And this is why people with BPD can often be suicidal or engage in risk-taking behaviors, is because they have difficulty managing their behaviors. And they usually have impulsive behaviors in at least 2 areas. It can be reckless driving, it can be binge eating, it can be impulsive spending. This is why sometimes BPD can look like ADHD, but 40% of people with BPD have ADHD, so make sure you get assessed for both. This third part of dysregulation is interpersonal relationship. So interpersonal relationships can often be turbulent, rocky, unstable because of the association with abandonment. Individuals with BPD often have a fear of real or imagined abandonment, and they'll go to frantic efforts to avoid abandonment, which means they can be stuck in toxic, unhelpful relationships more than they would like. And part of the relationship area of BPD is something called splitting. So people with BPD, they can split between two modalities. They can idealize someone, put them on the pedestal, they become their favorite person. And then if something bad happens, they can devalue the person, completely cut them out.
Do you eat a large amount of food in a short period of time and feel a loss of control? Maybe you make yourself sick after you binge eat. If this is you, you're not alone. I'm a clinical psychologist who went through a 9-year eating disorder, and I know how to get to the other side of food freedom. If you're ready to ditch the dieting mentality, discover food freedom, and find confidence in yourself and your body, click the free eating evaluation call. The link is below.
And the final is cognitive dysregulation. So the way they think, your cognitions or your thoughts, is usually very black and white, either good or bad. They can catastrophize, they can jump to conclusions. So the way they think is impacted by this disorder. Now, what we know is BPD is marked by intense emotions, unstable relationships, a fragile sense of identity, and chronic feelings of emptiness or fear of abandonment. People with BPD often feel emotions more deeply and for longer than most. They can swing rapidly from feeling close and connected to someone to feeling rejected, angry, or disconnected. And this can happen within hours. People are like, oh, how do you know if it's BPD or bipolar? The difference is the frequency and the intensity of the mood swings. Now, common experiences in someone with BPD include the strong fear of abandonment or rejection, rapid mood changes or emotional intensity, impulsivity, like I said, in 2 or more areas, eating, substance use, risky driving, an unstable self-image. They don't really know who they are. And this is why, not to generalize, but many people with BPD, you'll see, have a lot of tattoos, they color their hair, they have a lot of piercings. They go through different stages, sort of trying to figure out who they are. It's not to say that everyone with tattoos and piercings has BPD. Calm down, it's okay. They may have episodes of anger, shame, or self-criticism, and they have a chronic sense of emptiness or numbness between these emotional highs. What's really important to say is BPD does have stigma. I don't care what anyone says, it has stigma. It has stigma in the profession, it has stigma in the population, just because it's not well understood. Now, BPD, it's not manipulation, it's not attention seeking. It is a disorder of emotional regulation and attachment. I don't know anyone who has borderline personality disorder that has not gone through some sort of childhood trauma. So before you judge someone with BPD, know that they've probably had a very difficult life. They've probably grown up with an invalidating mother or parental figure. They've had to grow up very quickly. They've been parentified as a young person. They haven't learned skills to regulate their emotions. Their parents were probably alcoholics, drug addicts, you name it. Like I said, not in every case, but in many cases it's common. People with BPD, they often feel they're too much, not too little, and the intensity of those emotions can be overwhelming. How does it develop? There's not one single cause of BPD. Usually there's a combination of biological, psychological, and environmental factors. This is known as the biopsychosocial model. So let's break it down. Biological factors. Research shows differences in the way the brain processes emotions and threat. So the amygdala, we know the fight or flight alarm system, it tends to be overactive in people with borderline personality disorder. The frontal cortex here, the prefrontal cortex, the smart brain, which tends to regulate emotion and impulse control, which fully develops at the age of 25, so give your teenagers a break, may be underactive in moments of stress. This means emotional reactions can be intense and difficult to calm down once triggered. There's also a genetic component. So if you've got a close relative with BPD or another mood or impulse-related disorder, your risk may be higher. Number 2 is early attachment and environment. This is huge. Every person I've worked with BPD has had an early attachment issue. And this doesn't always mean abuse. Many people with BPD report unstable, invalidating, or traumatic early environments. Now, this can be environments where emotions were minimized. You're overreacting. You're a drama queen. Where their emotions were ignored or inconsistently responded to. This can lead to a child learning that my feelings are too much or I have to change myself to be loved. And this can carry on into their adult relationships too, which is why breakups hurt so much. As a result, they may grow up with deep fears of rejection and difficulty regulating emotions. Always scanning relationships for signs of safety or abandonment. The third potential cause of borderline personality disorder is psychological and social factors. So repeated invalidation or early trauma such as neglect, bullying, unpredictable caregivers can shape their beliefs. They may think, I can't trust people. If someone leaves, I'll fall apart. I'm not good enough. In adulthood, these core beliefs may manifest as intense attachment patterns, chronic emptiness, and black and white thinking in relationships. So, the bottom line is BPD, it's not a character flaw, it's not attention seeking, it's a learned survival pattern rooted in early emotional pain, amplified by biological sensitivity. Now, what's the good news? There are people with BPD who live incredible, great quality of life lives. And what I see is people who engage in long-term dialectical behavior therapy, especially in a group format, achieve really great outcomes. People with BPD can absolutely build emotional stability, healthier relationships, and a strong sense of self. But it takes work. It takes a lot of work. Now let's go into why breakups feel different for someone with BPD. People with BPD experience emotions more intensely and for longer periods. As we know, the amygdala, the emotional alarm of the brain, it tends to be more reactive, whilst the prefrontal cortex, the logical smart brain, which helps to regulate our emotions, can be less active under stress. This creates a storm of emotions that can make it hard to think clearly or self-soothe after a breakup. For example, you might notice black and white thinking. So the person going through the breakup, 1 minute they hate their ex and the next minute they're idealizing them and thinking of all the good times. Now, this happens in people without BPD too, but to a lesser degree, or they might be more able to manage it. The second thing is intense cravings for connection. Even when you know a relationship was unhealthy, people with BPD crave that connection. The third thing is impulsive urges. As we know, people with BPD struggle with impulsivity. So when someone without BPD might get an urge to call their ex or whatever, they can be like, no, I know that's not a good idea. Whereas people with BPD might contact the ex, check their social media, or test to see if they care. And if the ex doesn't respond, this can reinforce those deep feelings of emptiness or self-blame. So let's work on how do we actually manage this? What are some strategies to get by? Step 1 is you want to understand the cycle. The first step to healing from a breakup, especially if you have BPD, is awareness. We love an aware queen. So you might be stuck in what we call the abandonment, idealization, devaluation cycle. That's a mouthful. Let's break that down. Abandonment. You sense rejection and you panic. Number 2 is the idealization. You start replaying the good memories to soothe yourself. Number 3 is the devaluation. You swing to anger or resentment to protect yourself from pain. This push-pull cycle can make it harder to let go even when the relationship was unhealthy. So whenever you have this moment, when you're feeling vulnerable, I want you to ask yourself, am I missing them or am I just missing the feeling of being wanted? I love to tell people to keep a list of why you broke up, and you read that list every time you feel vulnerable. Number 2 is we really want to build emotional safety. The pain of a breakup often triggers your attachment wounds, especially if you have BPD or an anxious attachment style. Your brain is wired to seek connection for survival, so being alone can feel threatening. So what can help you in this? Create routine. If you're going through a breakup, routine is so important. Go do your gym workout. Drink your smoothie, have your breakfast. Structure gives your brain safety and predictability. I know you want to sleep in bed all day, and that's okay. Give yourself permission to have some of those days, but don't make that your emotional home. Validate, but don't accommodate your feelings for too long. Give yourself permission. Say, do you know what? I'll go to the gym and then I can stay in bed all day. By the time you go to the gym and come home, your feelings are probably going to have changed. Number 2 is ground yourself. If you're feeling triggered or overwhelmed, cold water on your face, or I love a packet of peas or an ice pack, is the fastest way to ground you and calm you down if you feel angry, overwhelmed. You can walk barefoot on grass. I love that. I've been doing that on the beach, just walking along the beach barefoot. It's been so nice. Or deep breathing. The key is to activate your vagus nerve, which is the nerve that goes from your brain to your gut, because this helps calm the nervous system. You can do gargling, you can do singing. Reach out safely. Find 1 or 2 people you can talk to without shame. If you have an urge to contact your ex, message a friend, get in touch with your therapist, write in the notes of your phone what you really want to do and say, but sleep on it. Don't act on those impulses right away, which is the last thing I was going to say. Avoid impulsive behaviors. You know that they only give short-term relief. They haven't worked for you in the past, and you're just going to have a lot of shame if you do engage in impulsive behaviors that you're going to regret. So remember, we want to build emotional safety, then we want to go into a strategy. Now, step 3 is reconnect with your identity. One of the hardest things after a breakup, especially in BPD, is the sense of who am I now? When your identity was built around the relationship, its loss can feel like losing yourself. Here's what can help to rebuild your sense of self. Rediscover what brings you joy or peace. Try one thing a day, read a book, go for a walk, sing a song, listen to music. The second is journal. And I know people think, ew, journaling. It doesn't have to be Dear Diary. A journal, sometimes my journaling is a dot point. Sometimes it's a to-do list. Sometimes it's a barrage of my feelings. You can also just write down what you value. Who are you when you're not someone's partner? Who were you before this relationship? And more importantly, who do you want to be? You've got the opportunity to recreate yourself. Who do you want to be? And finally, to reconnect with your identity, revisit your personal boundaries. They're not walls, they're clarity. Healing happens not just by letting go of the person, but by reconnecting with you. What are you willing to accept and stand for? If your friend was going through this, what would you suggest to them? Step 4 is super important, and this is reframe the story. When a relationship ends, our brain often goes down the most negative, torturous, painful story that it can. It tells us, I wasn't enough. If only I was skinnier, I would have kept them. I'll never find someone like them again. It's all my fault. But here's the truth. Relationships end for complex reasons. It could be timing, it could be trauma, it could be your values, it could be emotional readiness. Not because you're unworthy, but your brain is always going to the worst case scenario. So I want you to write this down. Get a pen right now. Try these journaling prompts. What did I learn about myself through this relationship? What did it teach me about what I need and what I deserve? How can I use this pain as motivation for growth? Journal that stuff. Now, number 5 is a skill from dialectical behavior therapy called practice radical acceptance. So radical acceptance is a skill from DBT, and it's very effective. It basically means accepting reality as it is without judging it. This hurts. I wish it was different, but it is what it is, and I can still choose how I respond. It's kind of like the let them theory by Mel Robbins. Acceptance doesn't mean approval. It means choosing peace over resistance. What are you going to do about it? Every time you practice this, you strengthen your emotional muscles and start reclaiming your power. And a lot of people will say to me, like, how do you not react every time you miss your flights? Every time, something bad happens, you're just like, okay, because what am I going to do about it? I can get upset, I can throw a fit, I can get anxiety, or I can just accept it and be like, oh, well, and move on. This comes with practice though. So here's the final thoughts. If you're going through a breakup, whether or not you have BPD, please know this. You are not broken. You are human. Breakups hurt, and it takes time to rebuild yourself. But what ruins this or gets in the way is breaking the cycle of no contact. If you really want to recover and heal after a breakup, do not contact your ex. Focus on your routine, focus on building yourself, and every day will get a little bit easier. And I promise there will be one day where you'll be so grateful that you push through this. Your emotions make sense given what you've been through. And while the pain feels unbearable now, it will lessen with time, structure, and self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. You don't have to erase your ex to move on. Just integrate the experience into your story of self-growth. Now, my well-being tip of the week is when you feel the urge to reach out to your ex, pause and redirect. Do one grounding activity for 90 seconds before acting. Go for a walk, call a friend, take a breath. That small window can help shift you from emotional mind into wise mind. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who might be going through a breakup or someone who needs a reminder that healing is possible. You can also find resources on my link or hit follow on social media. Please take a screenshot and share this if you enjoyed it. And don't forget to leave a review. Until next time, take care of your mind, your heart, and your energy. I love you, and I'll see you next episode.
Did you know by taking 2 seconds to leave a rating or a review, you help me get the podcast out to more listeners just like you who could really benefit from the information? I appreciate all your support and thank you for tuning in.